here. On any given day, I find myself looking at the piles of parts and pieces and half machines and chassis and engines and transaxles and crap I got kicking around. And I think to myself, you know, a lot of this stuff I'm reserving for projects. And a lot of this stuff is one of those, the deal was right, so I had to grab it and I'll figure it out later. And I look at these piles of stuff and I think, man, you know, it's a pile of stuff. And until I do something with it, it shall remain a pile of stuff. And every now and then I look at it and go, you know, I should at least just bang some of these parts together, make something of it, so that if nothing else, it's a something rather than a pile of stuff. So I've got this here Honda 13 horsepower engine. Thonda? That's a Philly thing. Mushmouth, gotta love it. And I didn't do a video on this thing, but I did throw some crap out on Facebook. This engine had come from a generator, had a tapered shaft, no electric start, no charging system, and I had laid hands on an older GX390 13 horse engine that did have a normal shaft, not a generator shaft, and it had electric start and a charging system and all that stuff. The starter was missing, but all the provisions were there. So I got the electric start engine, the older one, from my buddy Full Metal Fab on YouTube. Thanks, Steve. And I got this engine from another buddy on YouTube, Lawn Gun. Thank you, Chris. So what I did was I just swapped the parts around. I went on Kijiji, got a starter, and turned this generator engine with almost no hours on it. The piston was just mint. Turned this into an electric start charging system whole shooting match. The regulator was missing. I'm trying one from a Honda lawn tractor. Anyways, long story short, this engine's in immaculate order. Runs very well. It now has the correct shaft and all that stuff. So I've got this beautiful 13 horse genuine Honda kicking around. And it just needed to go in something. So we're going to put it in something. And here we have something. This is a Sears Suburban SS16, or at least it used to be. It's in pretty crappy shape. There's a science experiment growing on top of the hood there. Don't know what that action is there. And the factory seat's long gone and it's shredded. The brakes are missing. It's got your typical grill damage from that fiberglass grill shell getting flipped open and cracking and stuff like that. The grill corner is not missing. I have it with me. It's just off. The front tires are just kind of on there, and they're actually from a Honda 3813 lawn tractor because I needed these rims to put on that wheel horse that I flipped. Stupid idiot. It's got some turfs on it that have been cut into kind of little wedge profiles. Let me get in a little bit closer and you can kind of see that all the treads have been shaved onto an angle. Somebody obviously went to a lot of effort, presumably for pulling. And, you know, I'm not going to pull this thing, but it's interesting nonetheless. The cowl has been cut out because somebody wanted to take the battery tray off, and instead of going through the process of taking the cowl off properly, they just hacked it out. Did that on both sides. See if I can get this hood open one-handed, which is not easy to do because it's a little bent up. And you can see that the top of the cowl has also been hacked. No idea why, but it's butchered. Same thing on that side. The back side, you can see, back side of the grill, you can kind of see the sort of repair. It's pretty typical of these things, really. The one on Commando is probably the one that I've got in the best shape, and even that's damaged. So the idea being to take that Honda, plop it in here, throw on some other wheels and tires, maybe lock the diff. Who knows? Either way, just it would be nice to get this thing running and driving. This doesn't have the fuel tank either, so I'm going to have to come up with something creative for that. I guess we'll see. Come up with something. One of the biggest problems we see with Honda and clone repowers is fitment. I've kind of got the engine sort of in place, and I've got the pulley just sitting on the shaft just to make sure that the alignment is correct. The engine is shifted far enough over to the one side. But I really need to get that engine further forward. As you can see, the rear mounts are right off the plate. Now, I suppose I could, add on to that plate. I don't know. You can see I don't have a lot of room between the cylinder head and that brace. That brace may have to move. And I also have the issue. of the stock air intake carburetor stuff, plastic junk hitting here. I've already taken the factory air box because that was just not going to happen no matter what. But as you can see, I've got a little interference there, and I need to bring that further forward. And the problem comes down to the fact that these Honda engines and the clones that are styled after them have that cylinder leaning way down on what's like a 20-degree angle off horizontal, and that tends to make for a very long engine. It's not very tall, which is okay if, overhead clearance is a problem. But front to back, yeah, that makes things a little bit difficult. So what I'm going to end up doing is a little bit of a hack and whack. I'm not going to feel too bad about hurting the hood or the grill or anything else, because it's all pretty ugly on this thing, and I just want to get it going. Alright, so nothing too hideous so far. A little bit of a notch here. I'm going to have to do something with this panel here too, obviously. And once again, don't care. Gotta cut it. According to belt alignment, I think I've got the engine sitting more or less where it needs to be. So I'm going to have to start marking out the holes. I've got a 6-inch pulley there. I'm going to use that because I have it, and I think I might be able to use the stock belt with that. We'll see. There's some room in the adjuster over here. There's a pulley behind that. And if I got to get a longer belt, I'll get a longer belt. But I can't really move the engine further back without adding on to the plate back there. So I guess it's mark it out, drill some holes. That brace is pretty much touching here. I might have to move that. Whatever, don't know. Alright, so Murphy of Murphy's Law fame is a horrible bastard. This hole right here just happens to coincide with some weird ass something in there. Not even sure what the hell that was for. Might have been a guide or something. But, yeah, exactly in the way. So I'm going to try and reach in there with the Sawzall and nip it off a little better. Good enough. I can quite honestly say that would have sucked without a Sawzall. Alright, all 4 bolts are in and tight. And you can believe me when I tell you that last one was a hairy biatch. Let me show you why here. There's the view from the top. Get the light here. Inside that little channel is where the head ended up. Right in there. So there wasn't room for a washer or bugger all because it's right up against the rail, which is kind of good because it held the head of the bolt in place while I was tightening. And I had to feed it up there with a socket from underneath because from the top, trying to get it down also would have been a nightmare, and there's no way I would have got a nut on it. So, damn thing's in anyways. Alright, well I normally like to put a little anti-seize on the shaft before putting the pulley on. And stuff's out on loan. So, I'm just going to use some dielectric grease instead, because it will do the job. All we want is to keep the pulley from rust welding itself to the PTO shaft in case we have to change it or service it. And anybody that's pulled a rusted on pulley off knows just how much of an absolute farking nightmare that is. So, keyway lined up. Just going to get the belt on loosely to figure out alignment. Yeah. Now, I'm not really sure about the clutch throw here. That belt might end up being too short. The clutch may not disengage for me, in which case I can alter belt length or mess with the tensioner pulley or something like that. I don't know if I've got a lot of room left in the tensioner pulley. It looks like it's pretty close to its uppermost position, but we'll have a peek later. After we get this thing fired up, we can see if it's going to release properly or if I have to do something further. Alright, so for a guy who's ripped apart as many machines as I have, you'd think I'd have some more fuel tanks kicking around, but I don't. So I have this one here that I had on General Mayhem, my racer. Some of you might remember that. That project's still kind of in limbo, and I think if I do wind up reviving it, I'm going to completely reconfigure it. So I don't feel bad nicking this tank for now. And just going to go ahead and mount it up against here. Feed the fuel line through, and I'll show you how I'm mounting it. There we go. Alright, that's it. Damn tank's mounted. Again, no voodoo here. I just used my grinder to whip a couple of holes in convenient locations for the straps to pass through. And presto, there's the tank. You can see that I had planned to run a remote vent line on that. I'll probably switch that out for a 90-degree fitting or something, because that looks like it's getting kind of close to where the hood should be. And I just got to run the fuel line into the carburetor, and that's that. I stopped buying fuse holders a long time ago because I discovered that Quick Connect male spade terminals did a decent enough job of making a fuse holder. Bang a couple of those on, and give them a little bit of a crimp down if you like, for better grip. I usually end up doing that. And then just to protect it from bouncing off anything and shorting out, just a quick little wrap of electrical tape or whatever you have on hand. Okay, so I've got a lead coming up from the big post on the starter solenoid, and it makes it to underneath the dashboard, and that's what I've got this male terminal to plug into. And I just need one more length of wire coming off this terminal back down to the trigger coil lead on the starter solenoid. Okay, so we've got the wiring back in place. We replaced the bad connector. Quick test. Cool. Okay, now all we have to do now is get the button in the factory key switch hole. For this exact moment, the kill switch is still on the engine in its factory location. That will change. And obviously, because this thing has been degoverned, I have no throttle control. I've kind of got it sort of half-ass held in a more or less almost idle position. So with that being said, let's turn the switch into the on position, fuel on, choke on, and key. Okay then, well, we got no throttle control and we have no brakes at the moment, but it appears the clutch is working. Fantastic. Alright, working good. Anyhow, I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in to Sprocket's Garage on YouTube. And until next time, take care of yourself. course, I can't find the screwdriver I had in my hand 14 frickin' seconds ago. Duh. Alright.